You are listening to Trophy Horse with your hosts, Tricky Mick, Alex, I Yield to Nolan, Sid, and Ender Phoenix.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Trophy Horses, episode 621. I am your host, Alex, and unfortunately, this week, Tricky is listening in the background, but he's not going to be joining us. His new meds are kind of kicking his ass, just like the Carolina Hurricanes kicked the ass of the New York Rangers the other night. But I still got my two trusty hosts here with me. I got, first of all, he always brings the awesome. It's I Yield to No One.
I don't know why, but that brought a smile to my face, Alex. Thank you.
It's probably because Tricky has talked so much shit about the Rangers. Matt, sir, you are not a Rangers fan. How are you feeling this week?
Well, considering Carolina kicked the shit out of the Devils last year when I wanted to see them, seeing them continue their threat against the Northeast here, I'm conflicted. I really am. I don't want the Rangers to win, but I also don't want Carolina to win. So I guess we'll just have to see how this one plays out.
I have it on good authority, or at least I have a coworker who watches a lot of NHL hockey. NHL hockey, that's very redundant. A lot of NHL. And I asked him, who's your favorite to win? And I think that he said whoever wins the Boston series, whoever Boston's playing. I can't remember who they're playing. But he said that was his bet probably to come at least out of the East, and if not win the entire thing. So we will have to see. But yeah, I mean, all jokes aside, I mean, the Rangers are 7-1 in the playoffs. They beat the Carolina Hurricanes in the two previous games in overtime. So very tough game. So Carolina's playing them really well, but it's 3-1 in the series. So New York's still in a pretty strong position. So Tricky says my coworker has no idea what he's talking about, but we'll see, Tricky. We'll see. The defending champs, the Knights, the Las Vegas Knights, they're out. They're gone first round. So we'll just have to see. Someone's going to be a new champion this year. But we don't talk about hockey on this show, especially when Tricky isn't on. We talk about video games, and hasn't been the best week in the video game industry. I made a joke on the Trophy Horse page that Sony kind of turned to Microsoft this week and said, well, it's your turn to piss everybody off. And Microsoft certainly did that. But yeah, we'll get into the news a little bit later. But per usual, where we're going to start is always with our updated trophy counts. So let's see here. What is Tricky? Tricky is level 906 with a trophy count, total trophy count of 30,348 and a platinum count of 842. I am level 503. Total trophy count of 9,779 and a platinum count of 169 in 168 games. Yield, I believe you're up next.
I gotta scroll. Level 509 with the trophy count of 10124. Oh, I should have stopped. That'd have been a perfect one at 123 with a platinum count of 187.
Matt G.
In typical Matt tradition, I should say. I don't know where I got the word condition from. It's been a long weekend. I have not budged with my trophies. I'm still level 220 with 1,310 total trophies, 0 platinums. But the last Steam achievement I got was Undersea Civilization and Dave the Diver.
I believe I own that trophy, the trophy version of that as well. Is that one where it's like just a progression trophy where you...
Yeah.
Okay. I'm pretty sure I have that one so far, but I know it's story related. So eventually, if you played enough Dave the Diver, you will get that one. And last but not least, our buddy from across the pond, Sid, is level 890, total trophy count of 27,005, with a platinum count of 843. Folks, you heard that right. 843 is one more than 842, so Sid has reclaimed the lead from Tricky, just like the Carolina Hurricanes reclaimed the lead from the Rangers last night. All right, that's the last Ranger joke, I swear. But yes, Sid has retaken the platinum count, and he sits in the driver's seat. Well, Matt, I know you haven't been earning trophies, and we forgive you for that because Steam achievements basically count for the same idea. What have you been playing this week?
This week was a mix. Like I said, it's been a real crazy week. But I did get some decent gaming.
Is it a hodgepodge? Would you call it a hodgepodge?
No, I don't use that word.
Why not?
It's a very weird word to say.
But that's what makes it more fun. Like mishmash. Mishmash is a fun word to say.
If I'm stumbling over my words, it better be for something other than the word itself.
Hodgepodge.
Hodgepodge. Okay. So
no stumbling detected there, Matt.
It's been a very hodgepodge week. More Dave the Diver. A little co-op in Origami 2, which is kind of like a Steam or it's a game on Steam. I think it's also on Game Pass. No, it's not on Game Pass. You can buy it on Xbox. It's a co-op stealth assassin game in the veins of Tenchu. So I've been playing that with my friend. Also put in a little Starfield, and finally I bit the bullet and succumbed to pressure, and I bought into the early access of Hades 2. Put about 5 or so hours into that, and god damn, is that a fun game. So if you like Hades 1, Hades 2 is right up your alley.
Did they make any seeming because I mean the core game that they had previously was a lot of fun. It seems like always got a lot of praise, but were there any small improvements or noticeable improvements that you could tell that make it even better in Hades 2?
Well, I mean, the core gameplay is still there, but it's a different character, a different set of upgrades, like a different type of upgrade, different weapons. You got some of the same gods and goddesses as well as the demigods and goddesses, and different boons in some cases. I don't think I've seen any of the same boons, but, typical things like attack up or freezing enemies is there. But it's a different enough game that if you loved the first, then I think you're really going to love the second. They didn't need to change a whole hell of a lot.
And you said you were still playing Dave the Diver. Do you have any tips for anybody else there? Guys, obviously it came to PlayStation Plus Extra this month, so a lot of people are probably playing it, myself included. You got any tips for everybody? That make the game easier?
Definitely learn to upgrade your dishes, because that's where you start netting a lot more money. Because as you upgrade them, you get more money for those dishes, and it just requires that you have the excess of that type of fish to upgrade it. The thing I will say is don't be confused, because if you use all of your fish upgrading the dish and you don't have any left to make your dish that night, you got to go back out and catch or farm some more. So just be aware. Lesson I learned.
And don't forget you to train up your staff, because you have to, for a trophy, you have to train up staff to level 20 and you start at level 1. But training up staff to improve their cooking and their serving definitely helps as you get more and more customers. And that's something I didn't start doing until recently. So make sure when you get some money, you not only upgrade your suit, your diving suit and all your gear, but also train your staff at the restaurant, because it's pretty necessary. Yield, sir, what about you? What have you been playing?
Oh, let's see here. I've been playing some Rocket League. I've been playing some Sackboy, A Big Adventure, trying to get the gold in the Ultimate Trial. I've been playing some Helldivers 2, and I've been jumping back into KO the Kangaroo, working on the Bend the Rules DLC.
How's that gold trophy in the that challenge coming? That's usually the place where everyone gets stuck.
I've gotten about 3/4 of the way through before I end up dying. I haven't finished it yet, because I'm just trying to hopefully get my gold in a run instead of just, oh, look, you got through, but you didn't do it good enough. So I've watched a video, and I'm trying to roll as much as possible to get through it, and I've only gotten about 3/4 of the way through it. I normally give it 4 to 5 tries, and then I'm like, you know what, I'm not going to keep beating my head against the wall tonight. I've done the best I could, and I'll just move on to tomorrow. So that's been it.
And I have been playing some of my usual Rocket League, Helldivers 2. They released the Polar Patriots Warbond for Helldivers 2. Nothing really to kind of report new with that game. Gameplay is still fun, although, I think you brought this up earlier in a previous week where you said that I guess it was your niece or your nephew or somebody had basically gotten to the point where their Warbond medals were maxed out, and then later on, after spending some, they got credit retroactively for, tasks that had been completed, like major orders and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Didn't you? That doesn't happen, because that didn't happen to me.
Really?
Updated that or not. But no, I got to 250 and was just sitting there. And by the time I spent all of that in the Warbond, nothing was awarded to me retroactively. So be advised, that does not happen.
Huh, I swear that's happened before. But
yeah, if you're looking for any advice to make the game better, Arrowhead, raise the cap on the Warbond medals. Don't cap them at 250. That's ridiculous. But yeah, the only other thing I've been playing is Dave the Diver. Put in some serious legwork last night. Like I said, training my staff to be better at the restaurant, enhancing those dishes, like Matt said, to get get the customers to pay more cash for each dish. I can go deeper now, and I'm getting new fish and getting bigger fish. Matt, I don't know if you get to the point where you can get the drone that'll after you defeat a fish. Some of them you can just catch via the harpoon, but others that you have to kill, like the tiger shark or bigger ones. And I don't know, do you have the drone yet where you can just take whole fish up? Because that does matter in terms of the quality of the fish that you're selling at the restaurant.
No, not yet. I just completed a side mission that ended up me having to fight a side boss that netted me another cook in the kitchen, if you know who I'm talking about. But yeah, I just completed that one, so I still got a ways to wait. Here's my issue. On the mission quest where you have to earn enough credit to get a certain group of people to trust you, I'm 5 credits short. And I don't know if that's by design or I'm missing something.
See, I'm not actually at that mission yet, and I do have the drone, which is weird because it seems like you're further along than I am. But have you opened the fish farm yet?
Yes.
Okay, I've got the fish farm too.
I also have a seed farm.
I do not have that yet. So you are further ahead than me. So I don't understand how I have the drone to take fish up, but you don't.
Was it a side mission or just an upgrade?
It was a mission you had to do. You had to collect, because there was a part where a squid or a kraken or something attacked a boat delivering pieces, and those were for Cobra, and you had to find 3 pieces on the sea floor in order for him to build the drone.
Maybe I need to speak to Cobra again, because I vaguely remember something to that. I found the wreckage. I did the mission. I killed that boss. I just don't know if...
Wait, was that boss, was that for the figure? For the
yes.
gun maker?
Correct.
So, yeah, it was the action figure. That's not the same mission I'm talking about. Because he gives you the headlamp for that. So
yeah.
You can go further down. Yeah.
Then I haven't seen the mission where...
It's the little submarine.
Yeah, I haven't seen that yet.
That's very odd. Well, it's also very helpful because you can upgrade that, but the first upgrade's 6,200 coins, which is a lot.
Jeez.
It is a lot, but it is worth it. So, but yeah, just more fun in Dave the Diver. I'm really enjoying that game. I'm honestly, I'm kind of skipping the story stuff. I eventually will do the story stuff, but I kind of just like fishing and catching new fish and then just running the restaurant. That game in and itself, that loop is a lot of fun, and I don't care if it takes me longer to get the platinum. I'm just enjoying that. I'm not even pushing the story along.
Have you found any good way when you're using the harpoon and you have to do one of the mini games and it's where you have to shimmy the joystick left and right? Have you found any good way to do that without having to do the palm method? Because
no, because I can't do it with my thumb. Other than I'm trying to remember all the mini games, because basically, folks, what he's talking about is you get a different type of harpoon, either electric, fire, poison, or just the regular steel tip one. Each one, when you are trying to catch a fish, once you basically take all of their, you've taken enough HP off in order to be able to catch them. Some fish you can catch right away. Other fish you have to wear them down. Each one has a different mini game basically to catch the fish. And like no, because there's the poison one has the little skull thing that you have to fill up by rotating the joystick. And for those, like I found no good way to do it other than just to like use the palm of my hand and just do that way.
So that leads to me to my next issue is as I'm playing it on the Steam Deck, there's no easy way to be holding the Steam Deck up with one hand and have to shimmy the controller. I have to do that game enough times because what happens, folks, is each time you have to repeat that game on the same fish, it gets a little easier. It takes less motions or less button presses. But it's usually like 4 or 5 times I have to get the same fish to get it to the point where I can do it on the Steam Deck.
Have you ever, taken one hand and gripped it in the middle with the one hand in the back? Like, if you just grabbed it, palmed it in the middle of the Steam Deck from the back with one hand, does that not give you enough stability to be able to do the joystick motion with your palm?
Yeah, but then in the amount of time it takes me to do that, especially on the first or second attempt, I've already run out of time to, like, fill up the bar where it needs to be.
Let me ask you, what's the coolest fish you've caught yet?
Caught or killed and sliced up?
The same. It's all the same.
I mean, it's the mega mouth shark.
Ooh, I just caught one of those last night.
That was a fun, annoying fight to begin with, but I finally figured out what I was doing wrong.
Well, I just have the sniper rifle, and I've been like taking chunks of life away by 30. From the fish.
There was a crate nearby that had a bomb, and I was able to get the bomb in there.
You know the most annoying fish to catch, I think?
Fucking lionfish?
The fucking tuna. The tunas. They have a ton of health, and they're all over the place. They're like crackheads. They're worse to catch than any of the sharks. Any of the sharks, the barracudas, they're nowhere near as hard to catch as those damn tunas.
I just got a mission to start getting more tuna because a group of people are coming in and they love tuna.
Oh, you mean for the party?
Yeah.
So folks, there is every once in a while in the game there'll be a different like animal featured for a party event. Like the first one was jellyfish, second one for me was tuna. And basically what you got to do is you catch fish and then build dishes around those fish, and you can net a ton of money from that. Just feed into the event. So yeah, that's that. I mean, it definitely helps make a ton of money because I made like $6,000 in one day, and I usually make 1,000 or something like that. So I mean, doing those events where you have to feature specific dishes definitely helps. But now the tuna is by far the worst to catch so far. Although the tiger shark gave me fits before I finally started to learn my way around like maneuvering myself so it didn't kill me. I've also upgraded my stuff enough where I have enough air and all that to be able to not worry about it so much. Because I got 265 clicks of air in my oxygen tank, so...
How much?
I'm not... 265.
Jeez.
Oh, I'm not fucking around, Matt.
I'm still at like 180.
I've also got my harpoon like up to level 6, 7, something like that.
So you just been playing the game. You haven't been pushing it along.
No, exactly. I just said that. I'm not pushing along the main story missions. Like, I'm doing the research for the marine research where you collect this many starfish or this many shells and turn them in, and you get different, like, rewards for that, like, items, like, they kind of buff you in some way. But, oh no, like, I'm still in Chapter 2. I played for, like, 8 hours, and I'm still in Chapter 2 of the story. Jeez. I'm just catching shit. So, but yeah, Dave the Diver is a ton of fun. Again, I will say that Jeff was right about that game. So, again, if you have PlayStation Plus Extra, if you have access to that, it's free for you, as well as the Dredge DLC. So, go ahead and just give it a shot. It's a lot of fun. And
it's not fun?
God damn it, I didn't want to do this transition. I didn't want to do this transition to come across like a hater, but my God, it was right there. What's not fun is losing lots of money, which apparently Warner Brothers has blamed on Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League. This comes from Forbes and Paul Tassi. During an earnings call, WB Discovery CEO David Zaslav said the disappointing release of Suicide Squad contributed to the losses last quarter. While the full budget of the game nor the scope of the sales are known, the fact that the game contributed to losses for WB does not bode well in today's industry. And it seemed very much like, I'm sure there are multiple reasons for that, but it seemed like when I was reading the articles that Justice League or Suicide Squad was like front and center. Like it was the main thing mentioned, like the only thing mentioned by name in the articles. Now, maybe that's the way that that person chose to write the article. I'm sure Zaslav maybe, or in like their quarterly earnings sheet, there were other reasons for that, but it definitely seems like Suicide Squad is a massive reason for the losses for Warner Brothers Discovery. Just when you think the news can't get worse for Suicide Squad and Rocksteady, it continues to plummet. Matt, what's your commentary on this? I know you shared this with everybody, but it's kind of like just this endless rabbit hole just falling down for this game.
When you have an executive highlight that they've suffered losses and your game is the reason that you've suffered losses, that is not a good place to be for a studio. As we've seen everything else going on this week with Microsoft, oh man, it is that if I were Rocksteady, I'd be very nervous right now. That is not a good look. It is not a good thing that a CEO says. And like you mentioned, the article talks about, while reasons weren't exactly discussed, talk about it being a live service game, talk about it being kind of disjointed or having no cohesive plan outside of the, they're going to make it up in the seasons. It's just not a good look. And unfortunately, they miscalled this one. I mean, everybody talked about how Harry Potter's Hogwarts Legacy was the #1 game last year. Single player, non-monetized, non-live service game. And here comes Suicide Squad. And it fell flat in its face. So you'd hope the executives learn the lesson and not have hardworking devs pay the price. I just don't see any other way this is going.
And as we've seen, like Paramount, I mean, Sony has been looking to buy Paramount or offered to buy Paramount. I haven't seen anything about, anything being accepted or anything going through, but Sony has offered to buy Paramount. These large studios, like Paramount, like Warner Brothers Discovery, are not in the best position right now. I mean, there are a lot of companies out there. I mean, we've seen in recent days Square Enix is in a lot of trouble. So when you are in this environment where even Microsoft is, this company that has all this money basically to throw at everything, when they're cutting ties with a lot of people all at once, and that's not just a Microsoft thing, but Microsoft can certainly do it with the best of them. It doesn't, like you said, it doesn't bode well. You don't want to be the reason for, tremendous losses for a company. And right now, Rocksteady is, I don't know who to attribute the comments to, but basically, if you've seen any of the comments about, Rocksteady recently in our chats in Trophy Whores and, probably the Loop Bros as well, it's not the same Rocksteady of old. This is not the Rocksteady that developed Arkham Asylum. It's a different team. There may be some overlap, but I mean, it's not the same Rocksteady. So, you can only live off success like that for so long. You can only live off the success of Arkham City and Arkham Asylum for so long. And this is the kind of game. I mean, this could kill a studio. Like this could absolutely kill a studio. So, Tricky's posted something here in the chat that I'm gonna look at, and let's see. Yield, why don't you give us your thoughts on this while I look what Tricky shared here. Yield.
Yes.
Oh, I was just saying if you were getting your thoughts on the news about this, ever more damning news about Suicide Squad.
I go back to State of Play. I mean, State of Play did not bode well for them, and there was no amount of, in my opinion, no amount of what they could have done by moving the deadline to change my opinion of the game from what I saw in State of Play. And then it solidified it even more watching Tricky play it, that I'm glad I didn't spend my money on it. They, in my opinion, from what I've seen of the game, they, instead of making it their own, they tried to make it a lot of genres from other games. And here we slap Suicide Squad on it, and here we go. And you've said, Alex, they've got characters that just aren't that, well known or will catch your eye want to play as them. So,
well, let me ask you. Yeah, let me ask you, Yield. What when you saw it at the state of play, what was it that turned you off towards this game? Because you never wanted to play it from the start.
So, I didn't like the whole that they were like flying around. I'm like, this is a Suicide Squad. They're not flyers, and they were flying about the place, and I'm just like, this don't look like fun. This looks like a fast-paced shooter. And I took it as kind of a, the Arkham games are more of a beat 'em up, and I get it. You're not going to be Batman, but still, it's going to be more of a possibly a beat 'em up. And they were flying all over the place and 80 stories in the air, and it's just like, this doesn't even look fathomable. And I was like, I'm done.
Matt, do you think and maybe you can come up with another reason for the failure of this game, because I think at this point we can call it a failure. Is it more people fighting back and biting back against live service because that's what they tried to make this game, or is it because of oh shit, I lost my thought there. I had another part to that question, but shit, I lost it. Yield was talking and I had it and I just lost it there.
Let me just say this. Yes, definitely.
Oh, I got
nobody.
it. Sorry. Let me get it. Is
Go
it
for
more
it.
due to the fact that people hate live service now or fighting back against it, or is it because people wanted another Arkham game and this is not what they expected?
Well, so I don't think those are. Do I want to use the term mutually exclusive? Yeah, you have a group of people who say, I wouldn't mind this, but it's somebody doesn't want a live service Arkham based game. And then you have other people who say, well, I didn't want a game based off of the Suicide Squad characters. I wanted another one on Batman or the Bat Family. So, and then you have some people in the middle, like that nice little diagram people make that says, well, I didn't want either of those things. And unfortunately, I know with a game like this, you're not going to please everybody. But in the series of decisions that led you up to a live service game not based on a good guy in the Batman series, and again, it just seems to me like all four of the players, playable characters, just don't seem to have enough differentiation. And yes, you had to give them all this ability to fly and jump around everywhere because you made it a sprawling city, which, again, I don't think is the problem. You had that in Arkham City. But again, you have this mix of people who go, I didn't want this, and then other people saying, I didn't want either of those things. And that ultimately leads to lack of sales. And it didn't help early on when they showed the one screenshot and everybody saw, wait, why are there 50 million types of currency up there? Is this going to be a live service? Is this going to have monetization that we don't like? And they just weren't clear on any of it. And then the beta happened and people were like, wow, this is not good. And then they took even more time to go back and try to make things right. It was just plagued from the beginning. That was my take on it.
And Tricky in the chat has pointed out that it's not necessarily a live service. It was more the source material, because he points out that Helldivers 2, which is a live service game, has been incredibly successful. And, hate to keep using the example, but Rocket League, ever since it went free to play and did the seasons, has been incredibly successful. But there's no denying that people are sick of live service games, or of live service being stuffed into every single game. I mean, Yield, you do see that as well, right?
Oh, absolutely.
And Matt, do you see? I guess it's one of those things where we saw like multiplayer start to be thrown into everything. Like you saw it in Uncharted, you saw it in Dead Space 3, and people are kind of like, we don't need this all the time. Is it that kind of situation where live service is now trying to be stuffed into a lot of stuff where it's not warranted and people are just kind of pushing back?
Well, I think it's a mix of that as well as people having live service things in games that they're paying full price for. It's a pretty well-known fact that if there's a free-to-play game, people are less likely to rail against battle passes and season passes and things like that. But you pay $70 for a full-price game and you start getting monetization pieces thrown at you to say, this is integral to your gameplay. People are going to turn around and go, why do I want this? I don't want to miss out on things that I'm paying for. I don't want my hard-earned money going into something that if I don't have the time to do this, I'm going to miss out. So Here we are.
I mean, it's sorry, I was responding to a text message there, but it is a. Let me see what Tricky said. We'll get Tricky's input here. And too many live service games becomes a problem because you can't possibly keep up. I mean, well, in that situation, Tricky, people just jump from live service game to live service game, and they, unless you really stand out like a Helldivers, you everything just dies, and it's just people jump from one to the other. And if it's a free to play game, it's a free to play live service game, and people play for a little bit and then jump to a new game. That doesn't help you because maybe they don't have enough time to spend money within your game to make development of that game worth it. So, I mean, that definitely is also a problem. Well, Tricky says he's right now playing Suicide Squad, Helldivers, and Division 2, and it's hard to keep up. I mean, I'm playing Rocket League, Helldivers, and Dave the Diver, and it can be hard to keep up with everything. But I mean, that's part of the problem is that outside of a few games, people aren't. It's not sticking. People aren't sticking to communities. And you go ahead, Yield.
I am not a huge supporter of live services. I played World of Warships Legends, but eventually, like I said, you get it that it takes up too much of your time. Even with Helldivers, I'm still into Helldivers, but now I'm kind of just, other than Friday nights when we get together, I pop on, I get my daily, and then I'm done because there's still war bond stuff to push towards. If there wasn't that,
listeners, I want to point out that's Friday night when I'm at work and can't play.
Yeah, I'm playing with the guys. But if it wasn't for the war bond, I would kind of be done with Helldivers, on a regular because I've got everything there is to get right now.
Well,
so what?
The point would be to win the war, but we don't seem anywhere near winning the Galactic Wars.
Yeah,
it's kind of like I looked at the map the other day, and I'm like, we really haven't made any room or headway from the beginning of the game. Like, it's kind of like one of those moments, like, why am I playing this game?
We pushed it back, and then they've pushed back, so we're at a draw right now. So your live service game has to have a draw, and Helldivers is multiplayer, Rocket League is multiplayer, World of Warships is multiplayer. There's a reoccurring theme here, everything's multiplayer. Suicide Squad's a single-player game. I don't see where you can draw a live service single-player game. Because, once you beat it, what is there to do?
Well, in the case of Suicide Squad, they're trying to add new villains in, but
that's DLC. So that's how I look at it. So I feel that you should have just released it as DLC and not try to do the live service thing. I don't know. Maybe I just don't understand the business model.
It does seem like they expect people to invest a lot of time over the course of 1, 2, maybe 3 years to play all these DLC characters they're going to release. I don't know. Maybe that was a flaw in their logic there. But yeah, Matt, I'm going to ask you, are we still betting on the, by the way, I love your t-shirt. For those who can't see, it says non-flammable, ? Challenge accepted. As we've learned, nothing in Helldivers is non-flammable.
Except Pelican 1.
Well, yeah, but I mean, do you know how terrible that would be if you could destroy Pelican 1? And you just stayed down on the planet. You know how pissed your teammates would be. That'd be awful.
I hear you. Actually, I hear you can do that.
You hear you can destroy Pelican 1?
Yes. If you put enough hit points into it, you can destroy it. Is what I've heard. I haven't tried it, but I hear it's possible.
Yeah, don't. Whenever you're playing with me, don't try that.
No.
Try that on Friday nights.
I haven't tried it yet. Someone told me that it is possible.
I mean, well, I guess friendly fire is a thing among you and the enemy. The enemy can damage the other enemies, so I guess damaging your escape ship definitely. But I've seen people, throw down eagles and other stuff at the very end, I guess, to try to get some final kills or just to make a big show of leaving. And imagine if you were leaving in Pelican 1 and the eagle drops and kills you. That'd be all the samples. The samples.
All right, the samples. Think of the samples, people.
Well, right now, Xbox's business strategy isn't necessarily the sample that people want to be going off of because This comes from PlayStationLifestyle.net, from Zarmina Khan, and yes, this is a PlayStation website, so I guess you kind of
take it with a grain of salt.
Take it into consideration that this was written for a PlayStation website. But the headline reads, Sony was right about Xbox Game Pass being unsustainable, it seems. Sony has maintained that the Xbox Game Pass model of launching the first-party games on day one doesn't make financial sense. Matt Piscatella of Circana indicates that video game subscription spending has been stagnant in the US for the past year, only up by 1% year over year. According to the data retrieved from internal Microsoft documents dated back to September 2023, indicated launching AAA games on subscription service is ridiculously expensive with the following estimated payments. $300 million for Star Wars Jedi Survivor, $250 million for Mortal Kombat 1, $100 million for Assassin's Creed Mirage. Editor's note, how are we supposed to think website named PlayStation Lifestyle is not biased? That was from Matt. Don't worry, Matt, I covered this on there.
You did. I appreciate that.
But yeah, so I mean, I'm obviously getting this data from an analyst. Now you can always pick out data and choose to highlight it based on whatever your bias is or whatever the point you're trying to prove. But I do also have another article that's, did I share it with you guys in chat? Where actually no, I think I shared it on the Facebook group. But yeah, let's gab about this a little bit. Matt, what are your thoughts on this? And I'll pull up that article that I
had
previously.
First off, yes, I went into this reading saying, wow, PlayStation Lifestyle, how are they making, really being dangerous with their titles today. Number two, this said, and I went to the original document, which was a court document. They talk about Microsoft's internal document.
Lots of small print.
Yeah. And take it for what it is. They said estimated payments for these games, meaning I don't think this was ever put on. Like, I'm assuming, without having read the full court document, this sounds like somebody said, hey, if we want Star Wars Jedi Survivor on Game Pass, hey, if we want Mortal Kombat 1, if we want Assassin's Creed Mirage, it's probably going to cost us this much money. This does not entail first-party AAA games, which this article would have you believe just based off the title and the bias inherent in it. So I'm coming in here calling and throwing the bullshit flag because it's like you brought nothing to the table about what an internal company does for their own games. So they sit down and call it unsustainable. How, based off of what? Because of what you think that they'd have to pay out to other developers and other publishers to get their AAA games on the Game Pass service, all of which are not on Game Pass. None of these games are on Game Pass right now. And then on top of that is these are estimated payments. They have nothing to do with what's actually been paid out to other studios. And these, I'm sorry, there's just too much here for me to not throw the bullshit flag and be like, you're speculating, you are pulling data and making it work for your cause. So sorry, no, I'm not buying it.
Okay, maybe I have a better article here that I shared on the show. Did you see this article, Matt?
I probably glazed over it.
It's written by Abiyan over at Tech for Gamers. Former Microsoft exec blames Game Pass for Xbox problems. Did you see that?
I saw that one, yeah. And that, I feel, is a little more viable in the discussion.
I'm trying to find the four names of the studios, because if you hadn't heard, Microsoft shut down 4 studios owned by ZeniMax, which is also the parent company of Bethesda. But the first 2 companies were Arkane Austin, which is half of Arkane, and Tango Gameworks, which we talked about last week, with Shinji Mikami, who was the founder, leaving, and his reasons for leaving. Now Tango Gameworks, the developer of Hi-Fi Rush, is now shut down. And Microsoft recently came out and said that they want more critically acclaimed games, which Hi-Fi Rush was, and apparently Tango Gameworks was pitching Hi-Fi Rush 2, and they just shut them down. So I'm going to read from this article. Let's see. That is not at all the article that I just Okay, here we go. The article, over on Tech for Gamers. Let me see here. Addressing the recent closure on LinkedIn, Brad Hildebrand, who worked as Senior Public Relations Manager for 3 years at Microsoft, stated that there are two major problems with Xbox at the moment. While fingers have been pointed at poor releases like Redfall, Brad Hildebrand believes it has nothing to do with Bethesda. He points to Game Pass as a major issue, stating that it cannibalizes game sales. Since Xbox fans are now accustomed to playing AAA releases through the service, Microsoft can no longer sell games to its core audience. He states that even the biggest hits on the service lose popularity over time. This means Microsoft cannot compensate directly for lost sales. Brad Hildebrand also points to a lack of growth within the service, which is evident from recent data provided by analysts like Matt Piscatella, which I believe was the source for the PlayStation Lifestyle article there, Matt. According to the former executive, Activision's second big reason for Microsoft's problems, having spent nearly $70 billion, the company is looking to quickly recoup cost and profit from this investment. This opens up the Xbox brand to more scrutiny from Microsoft, leaving this division open to interference from higher-ups like Satya Nadella. Since Xbox is not doing much to turn a profit, cutting costs seems to be the only way to satisfy such executives. Moreover, doubts have been spurred about the potential addition of Call of Duty to Game Pass. Brad Hildebrand highlights a potential risk to Microsoft now faces with this IP. So, Microsoft traditionally has put all first-party games on Game Pass as a way to get people to subscribe. Like people said, it's a tremendous deal. And we've always wondered, and Sony's even said, how is this sustainable? Well, now Microsoft themselves is saying, well, we may not put Call of Duty on there. And I'm going to say it now, they'd be stupid to put Call of Duty on Game Pass because think of all the missed sales the money they would miss out on by not getting Call of Duty sales. Yes, you would still get Call of Duty sales on PlayStation because they're going to keep it on the PlayStation for now. But Game Pass is on PC. Game Pass is on Xbox. Yes, it could be a way to get, if you put it on Game Pass, it could be a way to get some people to buy an Xbox or at least buy into Game Pass because they are like, you know what, why am I going to pay for this on PlayStation when I can just pay for Game Pass and have it on there? But also, Microsoft considering not putting it on the service shows that putting first-party games on there isn't necessarily always the best idea. It's not always great for the company. So, Matt, does that article give you any more confidence, or do you think there's any more strength to that? Because, I mean, this former executive says that Game Pass is actually a problem.
One man's opinion, who's been on the inside, who may have more information, is far more credible to me than somebody writing for an article for called PlayStation Life.
PlayStation is God.com.
Yeah, basically. Tricky writes for PlayStation.com. The problem is it's still, one could argue saying, well, you put it on hurt sales. However, you could also argue the games that Xbox has been putting out aren't exactly worth purchasing these days.
Well, I mean, you would say Starfield's worth purchasing, wouldn't you?
And I did purchase Starfield, and I have a lot of fun with it. And I said, you know what? I'm going to give up Game Pass because I there's too many games out there. That's really, I think, at the heart of this, is there's too many freaking games for me to sit down and go, all right, I'll buy into a subscription service. I got rid of Netflix because there's just nothing of value that I want to watch. And if I wanted to, now that One Piece and Avatar are out, I could subscribe for a month and do that. Games are more difficult to do with that because games take dozens upon dozens of hours to complete, especially the bigger ones. And I think people are turning around going, I don't have that much time. Me as a working adult, I don't have time to beat the games I purchase nominally, much less just have a recurring fee on my credit card. So I think the bigger issue here is time plus exponential amount of games that are out there. That I think is the bigger thing. And then again, games that they're putting out, I'll be the first to admit, aren't the greatest. But you saw everything that's coming out of the Hi-Fi Rush and closure of that studio. People are review bombing it in a positive manner, telling Microsoft, we love this game. Well, my issue with their gamers is, where were you rating it before the studio closed?
And I'm trying to find so the other two studios that were closed were Alpha Dog Games and Roundhouse Games. Just Arkane obviously is a name that people tie to Dishonored. Starting with Dishonored 2, Arkane Lyon, because Arkane is itself a French-based company, and Arkane Austin started to get credit separately for games. So Arkane Lyon did Deathloop and Dishonored 2, while Austin did Prey and Redfall. So just because you hear Arkane Austin, Arkane as a company is not shut down. They still do have people there that are the company is still breathing. It's just the French based part of it as opposed to the US based part of it. But getting rid of 4 studios, especially one like Tango Gameworks, like that doesn't suggest that they're swimming in the money. Because I don't know, like I understand, Matt, you looking at the PlayStation Lifestyle article and kind of like, giving it a very, an eye of scrutiny. But the fact that, again, they're not just going to throw Call of Duty out there. And then also they're closing 4 studios. And apparently there's more cuts to come. They haven't stopped cutting people after following the 1,900 people they cut from Activision earlier this year. And yes, there's going to be some redundancies when you take on a company as big as Activision and you're a company as big as Microsoft. But none of this points to great financial things for Microsoft. I mean, we always, see that, Microsoft has Windows, Microsoft's got endless amounts of money. But this does signal some financial trouble in their, strategy. And I don't think we can just say anymore that Game Pass is a complete win for them. Is that...
No, and I agree. And the fact that they started putting some of their own games on other platforms, I think was definitely the sign like, hey guys, we need to drive revenue for some of these things. So, I'm not blind to that. I'm just not going to take an article based on a PlayStation website and blindly say, oh yeah, you're good with what you state, when obviously what they state was biased and tuned to drive clicks to their article. So I will say Xbox Game Pass, Sony PlayStation Plus Extra and Premium, it's not the greatest things because there's too many games. There's not enough time. And honestly, until you start putting out more high quality games, as we've said in the past, and this past month, I think PS Plus got, what were the games they got?
Okay. I should probably know this, but let me see if I can pull up an older agenda here to find, it's usually the first article that we have. No, that's not it. 6-1. I'll try to look for it here. The PlayStation Plus games for this month. I can't believe that I have not.
I think there was one game there last week that I was like, okay, that's actually finally a decent calling to it.
EA Sports FC24.
Well, no, not that.
Ghost Runner 2.
Okay, Ghost Runner was pretty decent.
Tunic.
Okay, that was the game I was going to use.
And Destiny 2 Lightfall.
Tunic is a fantastic game to put on the service. And it highlights the point that we're getting fewer and fewer quality games on these services, thereby making it not sustainable. But here's the thing about the article. The video game subscription spending has been stagnant in the past year, only up by 1%. There's still growth. I'm reading that as there's still growth. Does anybody disagree with me?
No, I agree with you. It's not as big as they want, but it still grew.
And that's the issue with all these executive-driven programs. If you're not growing, you're dying. And that's my problem, is that at some point, you are going to fail because your goal is going to be so high you can't jump it. And all of these executives need to understand that.
I believe that Microsoft and Sony are no longer reporting subscribers numbers, and I think Netflix also does that as well. And that may play into a thing where they're not seeing growth in subscribers and they don't want shareholders to see that. But also, you got to remember, we're still coming out of the pandemic years where people were stuck at home. And I'm sure a lot of people subscribed to these services because all they could do was sit at home. And there's only so many people you can have to subscribe to this stuff. And you're going to have natural attrition. But when you have that big boost from a worldwide event like that, eventually you're going to have to come down from that. So, I mean, it's not just Microsoft that's not reporting numbers, and it's not just Microsoft that's stagnant in the subscriber service. But I will say, if you guys remember, Larian Studios, who made Baldur's Gate 3, said that their game is never going to be on Game Pass. Specifically, Baldur's Gate 3 is never going to be on Game Pass, which, again, it doesn't always, like these subscription services, like there are people out there that want nothing to do with them if they don't have to. So, again, the question of their sustainability, especially when Microsoft and Sony only have so many big games to throw on these services. And we've already talked about how Sony's really lacking in the games when it comes to this year. I mean, yeah, Helldivers was a first-party game, because they published it for Arrowhead. But other than that, what have we gotten from Sony this year, and what's on the road for them? So these companies only have so much they can throw on these services. Yield, we haven't really gotten to you yet when it comes to all of this. The Xbox news is pretty terrible this week, and people are, I don't believe this, but a lot of people, if you went into YouTube, a lot of people were making videos about Xbox, be it the death of Xbox and Microsoft burning down. So Yield, how do you look at all this in regards to just Game Pass, and kind of like we're peeking more behind the curtain now, and more people are starting to say, well, no, this actually isn't sustainable.
I still want to see the hard numbers. I mean, we've always thought that it wasn't sustainable, but nobody knew how or why. We just figured it didn't make sense to us to be sustainable. So I'm still kind of waiting to see as to, did they make money at some point? Were they losing money out the gate? Just, I guess, for my own curiosity. I don't think this is the end of Xbox. I saw an article where it seemed like they might be shifting their gears to be more like Steam, where they're just going to be a platform for games, which, I mean, you bought up all those studios. I could see that being the case, but you got to start making some games that people want to play. And, other than Starfield this year, you haven't done that. So,
well, the larger problem also becomes that you hear everybody talk about it, how expensive it is to just eat, to live. I had to spend a ton of money on home improvements. I just had to spend a ton of money recently taking our pets to the vet. The argument that people will play a game on Game Pass, especially these days, and then go buy it after spending money on a subscription service is hogwash.
They're not going to do that.
People are not going to do that. No, especially when it's so expensive to go, again, like the grocery store. People are not going to be like, yeah, I played this game, but I'm going to go spend 60 cents. No, they're not. They're not. I'm sorry. Some people might, but most people are not. So we'll see. I mean, I guess that, Microsoft, again, like, they have trended further in the future and looked further into the future than, say, Sony or Nintendo. But again, also, the subscription services have kind of seemingly, we're starting to see the cracks in all of them. Like, as consumers, yeah, it seems like a great deal. Like, pay this much per month and just have, cut your cable bill, and you have a seemingly endless array of stuff to watch. A smorgasbord, as Tricky would say. But there comes a point where, if you're a video game company, it's like you spend all this money on these games, and then you're putting them on Game Pass. Like, I guess we'll see if it's sustainable. But more and more people are talking. It's like, yeah, this isn't that great. And I will say, I had this thought randomly at work, because I was listening to, some YouTubers talk and give their opinions, talking about, Hellblade 2 is coming out soon, and Ninja Theory. And yes, there is some natural attrition of a team after a big project, but if Hellblade 2 doesn't do well, what happens to Ninja Theory? But my real concern when it comes to Xbox games is Double Fine. I'll throw that out there, because Double Fine is one of those studios that has always made really good games, but has not been the most commercially successful company out there. And their safety within Microsoft now really, really fucking worries me, I'm going to be honest. But yeah, that was my thought going through this week, especially with all the closures and them saying that Microsoft is not done cutting. That they're not done. So we'll definitely see how everything shakes out. Microsoft, I'm with Yield. I don't think Microsoft, has ended themselves or anything like that. But we do have an article here from IGN and Taylor Lyles. How to stop killing games ups the ante in the fight for video game preservation. Initiative created by YouTuber Ross Scott. Stop Killing Games aims to hold publishers accountable by ending the practice of making games designed to be unplayable after support ends. Scott has a simple strategy: file public complaints, and a lot of them. This is all done in an attempt to address a trend of publishers shutting down games, making them unplayable by ending support or server access. The Crew 2 from Ubisoft was a recent example of that. And again, if you didn't hear me before, this article came from IGN and Taylor Lyles. Matt, was it you or Tricky who found this article?
Tricky found it.
Okay, it's surprising because this seems like a very Matt thing.
Very surprising.
So Yield, what based on what you've heard, filing a lot of complaints, is this something that's going to get any traction, especially when it's being led by one YouTuber? Like, maybe either one of you can be a little bit more optimistic, but I'm rather pessimistic on this because I don't understand how this guy filing a bunch of complaints is going to do anything when it comes to all these large companies.
It's not, but it's good that you're starting to get more people that, we need game preservation. It'll kind of shine the spotlight for a little bit, but I don't see one YouTuber making a big difference.
So I'll read a little bit more from the article here. Scott, let's see, we already got that. After Ubisoft shut down the servers for The Crew, Scott encouraged Upset and Angry to file a complaint with France's Directorate General for Competition, Consumer Affairs, and Fraud Prevention, since Ubisoft is headquartered in France. Quote, due to the game's size and France's strong consumer protection laws, this represents one of the best opportunities to hold the publisher accountable for action, Scott wrote on the official website for Stop Killing Games. If we are successful in bringing charges against Ubisoft, this can have a ripple effect the video games industry to prevent publishers from destroying more games. So I guess he wants to set a precedent where you can bring charges, legally, and take them to the courts, these publishers to the courts, to get them to stop killing off games and shutting down servers for, games that you've paid for. I will say that all these companies need to do is put a disclaimer at the beginning of the game saying you will have access to this game as long as the servers are up. And I think they're pretty much financially protected there, and legally protected. Matt, your thoughts there? I mean, I know I'm not the most legally seasoned person, but I would think that putting that disclaimer out there would cover their asses from any kind of court action that this guy or anyone else can bring forth. Matt?
I don't even think they need to do that. It's probably already covered somewhere in all those end user license agreements we never read.
Because why would you? Yeah. I'm trying to play the game. I'm not even trying to do the training. I'm not even trying to do the tutorial, and you want me to read an EULA?
There, and on top of that, somebody went to the UK board. I forget the name of the commission that does it, and they're very consumer friendly and protective. And they already said, under no circumstance is a company compelled or required to continue servicing a game if it becomes financially unprofitable for them. It is their IP to do with as they wish. And if the UK said that, there's no hope for anywhere else in the world for that to become a thing. I appreciate the effort. I don't think this is the right way to go about it.
Well, and I mean, we as consumers, there's not many options we have, but you also think about, games that people play, an older Mortal Kombat game or older Call of Duty game or an older Assassin's Creed game. At some point, we all know those are going to get shut down. You can't, like you said, expect a game company to spend the money to keep the servers open for one guy to play. That's just not going to happen. So I admire the effort from Ross Scott, but I think it's pretty futile, and I think he's just kind of wasting his time.
Yep.
All right. Well, that is going to bring us to our community questions, listener questions. Tricky, you want to...
Time to check my social media, yeah.
Couldn't even finish my thought. He just barged in there. Thanks, Tricky. Matt, do you have any of the questions up? Because I know we had one from Rick on Facebook.
I have the feed. Yeah. So this week we did a little bit of a different thing where we asked the crowd, who's the best mother in games? And Rick came in and said, Mother 2 is a pretty good game. And JT Kamish agreed with him there. Will came in and said the Poke Mom who sends her preteen child off into the wilderness. And Ashley comes in and says May from It Takes Two is pretty good. But as far as questions go, and again, that all comes on the heels of today being Mother's Day, and the Proven Gamer community and Proven Gamer hosts would like to wish all the mothers out there a happy Mother's Day. So hope your gamers treated you well. And Rick comes in and asks your Mount Rushmore of video game characters. I can go if you two need a second to gather your thoughts. So I'm going to say...
Sorry, my thoughts. I was walking my dog earlier and trying to think. It's like, do I go with who I think are the most important characters in video game history, or who are the most important to me? And I guess since it's personalized, it's you. But
Okay.
Yeah, go ahead, man. Give us some time to think.
All right. So I'm going with Mario because obviously. I'm going with Sonic because obviously. I'm going with Master Chief as the herald of the current age of gaming. And throw a little curveball on it. I'm going with Kevin Butler, the VP of whatever department was made up at Sony every time we got one of his awesome, entertaining commercials. Because I can't think of anybody else for Sony that I would put up there as a gaming Mount Rushmore head.
So you went at least one for... You know who I'm really surprised you didn't put up there? I knew what you did. Nintendo, Sega, Microsoft, Sony, all that. But Link, Zelda, neither one of them?
I think it... Yeah. So as popular as they are, I think, honestly, from a recognizability perspective, if you throw an elf pointy-eared person up on that mountain, and especially since Link and Zelda have they tend to have different looks based on the game, some people might go, eh? So Mario, Sonic, clearly, obviously, Master Chief, same thing. People will have an immediate recognition. And I just like Kevin Butler. So there's that.
Do you have your four together? Or
I have my four together.
Okay, you go ahead.
So I'm going Mario and Luigi, because I'm not leaving out Luigi. Zelda and Link. Master Chief. And Nathan Drake.
So you got 6 heads on your Mount Rushmore?
Yes. Because 2 of them are a duo. You can't have one without the other.
He's using the more definition of Rushmore.
Yes.
It's the DLC for Mount Rushmore. It's the extra characters and the following seasons, the Infinite seasons.
It's the hidden room in the back of Mount Rushmore.
All right. So I'm gonna say Mario because Mario is. I mean, when it comes to games, we just all think of Mario. I'm going to say Link because I think that when it comes to people who play games, Legend of Zelda is the most important franchise that Nintendo has. I know sales-wise, Mario's probably got it beat, but that's also because Mario games come out far more frequently than Zelda games. So I think that the Zelda series is far more important to Nintendo than actually Mario. Mega Man, because obviously that's what got me. Like I still to this day love Mega Man. I love Mega Man music. I love listening to remixes of Mega Man songs, and I just absolutely I played the games as a kid, and I still love playing them today. So Mega Man has got to be one of them. And then also, I almost threw a Pokemon on here like Pikachu, but for my personal taste, I've owned every PlayStation home console, and the one that got me started in that was Crash Bandicoot. And so Crash Bandicoot also goes on there because if you're going to put me up, if you're going to say, Alex, who would you rather erase from history? Sonic the Hedgehog or Crash Bandicoot? That little blue blur can go because Crash Bandicoot is standing strong. Crash Bandicoot, the owner of the best mascot kart racing game there is. That's right, Matt. I brought it back around to this. Crash Team Racing Nitro Fueled is the best.
I'm sorry, Alex, you're breaking up again. I can't understand you.
Yeah, I'm not
Alex,
speaking.
There's something coming out of your mouth. I don't know what you're saying.
I'm not speaking Portuguese. I don't speak bullshit, sir. Well, I don't always speak bullshit, but yeah. So that's my 4: Mario, Link, Mega Man, and Crash Bandicoot. So
okay. Well, that is it for the questions this week.
All right, because we have quite a few topics of the week. Well, 3. We'll see how this goes. And oh man, if you all thought this was the Helldivers 2 cast, well, yeah. Hopefully you like Helldivers 2 or like hearing us talk about it, because the next 3 topics are about Helldivers. So topic of the week, PlayStation reverses course on Helldivers 2 PSN account requirement. This comes from IGN and Kat Bailey. Less than 3 days after Sony announced a mandatory linking of Steam accounts to a PlayStation Network account in order to play Helldivers 2 on PC. Sony reversed course and stated that they heard the feedback and that the May 6th and May 30th updates that would have made the connection mandatory would not be moving forward. So they have, again, reversed course, and they've listened to the community. They apparently, and I would assume, want to keep a good relationship with Arrowhead. So Arrowhead's probably pretty pissed about all this. And so, yeah, Sony did the right thing and listened, and they're reversing course. Although, I don't think they're reversing course on that PSN login for every game, just Helldivers. I'll get to you guys' thoughts on that after this, because these all feed together, but this one in particular, Helldivers 2 community manager seemingly gone after PlayStation login meltdown. This is from Ethan Gatch at Kotaku. Former Helldivers 2 community manager Spitz has been seemingly let go. In the wake of Sony's announcement regarding mandatory PSN accounts for PC players of Helldivers 2, Arrowhead Games went into emergency mode addressing player feedback. During the controversial weekend, the then active community manager was advocating for players to review bomb the game, saying it was the only way to get the devs ammo for a discussion with Sony. So on one hand, Sony reverses course. On the second hand, the guy who may have been a real catalyst for getting the community banding together against it, which probably would have happened regardless of him, but he was very outspoken about it, and I'm sure Sony talked to Airhead and said, hey, this guy's got to fucking go. We'll change, but this guy's got to go. Because I guarantee Arrowhead didn't make that call. It probably had to come from Sony. But Matt, your thoughts on this? The reversal of the course, but also the community manager being seemingly let go.
So the reversal, we talked about it on the Facebook page, or on our Facebook page group. But I get the feeling this is more about Sony didn't want to refund the money in those 177 countries or regions that they couldn't then legitimately sell in, because now when you look at it, and we'll cover it in the third article, the issue arose that Ghost of Tsushima, which is coming out very shortly, put out the message that to play the multiplayer portion, to get those trophies, you will have to have a PSN account. And this is something they're not going to reverse course on. And as a result, Steam has been issuing refunds there. And to this day, we'll cover that in the third article. So the next portion of this is the community manager. And it wasn't just the fact that Spitz was out there talking about, review bomb it. It's the way that the developer, us, will have the ability to talk about it, to push our agenda to Sony. I think there were a couple issues with during the conversation. Spitz was putting some stuff out there, and I think I couldn't find them because it was happening and the news was breaking so fast. But he said some things that were just not the most cognizant of what was going on in the world, especially with those countries that you couldn't register PSN accounts, because he's out there telling, no, you should just do it. It's easy, just register for an account. And everybody said, hey, I can't register for an account. I live in this region. And it was like, oh, like he didn't have an answer for that. So then he turns around and tells the community review bomb, so that way it gets their voices heard. And unfortunately, the day after Sony reversed it, you hear from somebody asking in the Discord saying, Spitz, you still here? And he's like, yep, yeah, still not gone. And then the next day was a tweet of, this is a very dark day. And, he was removed as a community manager on the Discord page. Unfortunately, the thing is, I've seen community managers come and go. That they're as easy to find as water in the ocean. It's everybody wants to be a community manager until you're a community manager, because then it's a really rough job and it's a thankless job, to be honest, most of the time. So wish the guy in whatever endeavor he has next. But Sony playing whatever game they're at to get people to get more PSN accounts, and they lost this one. But I think, somebody brought it up to say, they said it's not going on in this patch. Not to say that it doesn't happen in the future, because they could just as easily say, no, we're doing it for real this time. You all have had enough time.
Flip the switch.
And I think that Spitz's removal, if Spitz was removed, like you said, community managers, Arrowhead can probably find another community manager, especially with how popular this game is. But repairing that relationship with Sony, and let's be honest, like, Sony and Arrowhead probably realize that this is a good relationship and they probably shouldn't fuck it up, especially over one community manager. So Sony did the right thing. They listened. But I imagine that, as much as, I'm sure that Arrowhead would want to, it was probably pissed off with Sony about this decision and would want to protect its employees. Getting rid of this community manager just kind of made sense. And, even if Arrowhead went along with it, I still think Sony was kind of like, hey, this guy. So they were probably the ones who set this down the path. But, Matt, to your point about Ghost of Tsushima, this whole login thing is going to be a thing going forward. Because there's an article from The Verge here, written by Wes Davis, and this came from information from Eurogamer, which says Steam, Epic, and Green Man Gaming are reportedly canceling and refunding pre-orders for the PC port of Ghost of Tsushima for buyers who live in the over 170 countries without PlayStation Network access, report to Eurogamer. That's despite the fact that arguably the most important part of the game is still playable without PlayStation Network account linking. The news comes after Valve abruptly delisted the game in those countries. So basically, rather than sell this game in those countries, Sony is just going to keep going with the PSN login account thing. So, Yield, your thought. I mean, I guess they've waited with the money they could make without those 170 countries, but Yield, we didn't get your thoughts yet on Sony reversing course, the firing the community manager, and then them just moving forward with Ghost of Tsushima and the PSN login requirement for Steam and PC players.
Someone's got to be a scapegoat, and I guess since it's out there that he told people to review bomb, I could see that that's why. If he's not fired, I can see why that's why they removed him as community manager. Sony reversing course, I'm surprised that they did it, and also not surprised because of the amount of backlash and money that they would have to refund. The Ghost of Tsushima, I'm not a fan of it. I can be, and I shouldn't say okay with it. I can understand why you want to for the multiplayer part, but if you're not going to do it for Helldivers, then you shouldn't do it at all. I don't think that if you take your game and you go to someone else's platform, that you should make them play by your rules. Meaning that since they're taking Ghost of Tsushima and going to Steam, then if you have a Steam account, you can play it. If you want them to play on your platform and have your account, then don't sell it on other markets.
If you want my opinion, I think Sony should just sell the fucking game to as many people as they can and not require this PSN account stuff. But
that's what I'm. Yeah, and in essence, that's what I'm saying. If you want a PSN account or you want them to have a PSN account, then you should make them have to play it on your platform. If you don't, then you sell it wherever you want to, and don't make people have to sign in.
Like, here's the big thing about that is part of it is because what people want. They want to be able to crossplay. I want to be able to play with my friends on PlayStation. And so far, we've been able to do that via friend codes. Just requires extra work on the back end. But no, everybody wants to make it simple to the point where just have an account. Just put in more information. And somebody said this in the arguments over the last week. How many freaking access breaches has Sony had? Like if there's a gaming company I don't trust my information with anymore, it's going to be Sony.
Well, and if I am somebody who's in these, more than 170 countries who doesn't have PlayStation account access, I just want to play the game. And honestly, if we have to give up crossplay just to be able to, have the game more widely available, like I honestly, I would think that the big thing would be getting the game widely available and not having crossplay be a thing. I know that Sony has been pushed and everybody gave shit for Sony for being the last to come to the crossplay table. Or, Microsoft was out in front about it, and Xbox was totally willing to do it with PC, and then Sony was kind of behind their walled garden and everything, and people gave Sony shit for that. But, if you're people in these countries, you're like, I just want to play the game. I just want to play it. So, let me see here. Tricky put something in the chat. Let me see. Oh, God. Another community question.
We already, so this one was written by George Smith, and he asked about the thoughts on Game Pass profitability, given all the bad news coming out of Xbox. We pretty much covered that one ad nauseum.
Okay. And George, if we didn't answer your question if you want more, just let us know in the when next time we ask for questions on Facebook, and we'll see if we can dive in a little deeper. But what dive in a little deeper, that's what we do in Helldivers, and just kind of diving deeper into this controversy. Despite and before I read this, editor's note: how can Sony be fucking it up this badly? Matt, again, thank you for the paraphrasing all these articles and writing up the little notes here. Just so you all know where we're heading. Matt's already thrown that out there. Despite PS Universal, 177 delisted Helldivers 2 regions remain in limbo. This is written by Forbes and Paul Tassi. While some of the Helldivers 2 community are celebrating the victory over Sony, there's still players in the 177 countries where the game was delisted due to the former requirement of a PSN account for the PC side of the game. As was reported then, there's no reason was ever discussed. PSN accounts are not able to make in those regions. Now, as was reported then, though no reason was ever discussed, PSN accounts are not able to make in those not able to be made in those regions. Now that Sony has renewed reverse course, surely the game would go back on sale, right? Well, not so fast. There's speculation that maybe Sony doesn't want to risk selling in those countries where they may still require the PSN account linking down the line just to have people turn around again and ask why they're selling these areas where PSN accounts are not allowed to be created. Recent postings by Steam support tickets show it is indeed the publisher's call, and that Valve has little to no say in selling the game in those markets. This also include the soon-to-be-released Ghost of Tsushima PC port, and that's where Matt's editor's note comes in. So you're just willing to not sell to all these people just because? Just because? I mean, Matt, you wrote the editor's note. I'm sure you have something to say about this. You got your flamethrower in hand, and Sony is a charger, and you are just about to take them to Flambe City. So let's have it.
So the issue is, we all don't know why these regions are not allowed to have PSN accounts created in them. I'm not a legal expert. You guys aren't legal experts, unless you're hiding something from me. At this point, you would have let me know by now.
I'm not even
I'm not
even an expert in bird law like Charlie Kelly from It's Always Sunny.
So that's issue number one. Issue number two is, why would you then not allow Helldivers 2 to be sold in these regions despite no longer requiring a PSN account? And that's where it brings in the speculation is, maybe, just maybe, they're planning to reinstitute this later down the line, and they don't want to get into that argument of, well, you opened up for sale again. What the hell's going on? Because maybe they are thinking about refunds down the line, or maybe they're figuring out how to get that done for the digital game, or, because it was a physical game too. People physically have it. So what are you going to do, Sony? What's your move? And Steam is just kind of caught there in the limbo, being like, we don't have a say in this. Sony tells us where to publish these things. We just implement that via our servers. So
Gabe Newell takes a drink from his goblet and says, not my problem. Go talk to them.
Basically. Hey, I wouldn't mind being in Gabe's position in this little tug of war. So ultimately, Sony just does things without thinking because they want the money. And then they get hit with all these complaints afterwards. And now they got to figure out how to fix it. Tricky goes on his question, can't Valve say they won't sell it as a platform? Absolutely. Valve can turn around and say, I don't want anything to do with this thing. But that would be leaving their 30% cut just for essentially hosting files, because that's what Valve kind of does these days. Just host files.
Do we honestly think Valve is going to tell Sony we're not, no, one of the platform holders and the biggest publishers in the world, no, we're not going to host your game?
Yeah, to your point, Tricky. So is it Sony or Steam not selling in those regions? It's Sony. I saw a screenshot, and I put this in the note. I didn't put the screenshot in the notes. I put the comment. A screenshot literally said, from Steam support, says, we're waiting on the publisher to determine what the next steps are. because Steam can't put something in a region that Sony wouldn't allow them.
Well,
and that includes,
Epic Games probably isn't selling this either.
No, it's not available on Epic Games. So obviously there was a contract that Sony entered into with Valve. So it's part of the deal of digital distribution worldwide. As a publisher, you have the ultimate say in where it goes. And it was made clearly that Arrowhead, being the developer, doesn't. Pilstead came out and said, we just developed the game. We give it back to Sony and they decide where it goes from there. Ultimately, and this goes back to the Ghost of Tsushima thing, where you're doing it because you want to give PC players the ability to earn trophies and cross-play on a PC, which again is Sony just trying to hold on to that ecosystem. Be like, we'll give it to you on PC, but you still have to be a part of the Sony ecosystem, because we don't like PC players being a part of their own thing. We don't want to give you a game that you're going to enjoy without being a part of our ecosystem, because that's how we make money. And ultimately, that's all this is. Jimmy Ryan, Hiroki Todoki, whatever it is, you're just walking wallets and purses to them. So
Let me ask you, since they're not reporting, a lot of these companies aren't reporting subscriber numbers anymore, why wouldn't you want to sell to as many people as possible to be like, yeah, this game sold, 10 million copies, 20 million copies? Like, if you're hiding subscription numbers behind a wall, but yet you're still going to share, game sales data, 177 countries. I mean, they got to be making some money there regardless. There's got to be enough sales there to make it worth them selling to people in those countries.
agreed. And to Tricky's comment, Microsoft does the same thing with achievements where possible, except Microsoft has their own storefront. And that's what a lot of people think is going to come of this, is that Sony's just going to turn around and make their own storefront on PC, cut the middleman out and have direct control over everything. And you're going to need to sign up for a PSN account to use their storefront. Rockstar does the same thing. Ubisoft and EA do the same things. If I buy an EA-based game on Steam, it launches an EA Play, which is the worst fucking launcher I've ever seen. And this goes back to the idea that everybody's going to have their own launcher again on PC.
Let me make this point. And we need to get Yield in the conversation because I know that Yield hasn't said anything yet, but how stupid would Sony be to try to have their own storefront to go against Valve and Steam? How dumb. Like, the Valve consumer base is entrenched. Like, the people who use Steam, they're not leaving Steam to go use Sony's bullshit. Obviously, Epic Games has struggled to find a foothold despite giving away free games. So, I don't see any sense in Sony, trying to make their own PC storefront when all they just keep shit on Steam. Like, why?
Other developers did that, and they came crawling back to Steam because they realized, wow, this is bullshit. Steam just does it better. Yeah.
Yield, you're typing with Tricky here in the chat. Your thoughts, sir, on this news and how Sony is bungling, is somehow doing things right by listening to people, but also bungling things further.
I mean, it's kind of Sony's MO, take 2 steps forward, take 5 steps back. So I'll still go back to last week. It shouldn't be this hard to play video games. Before this whole thing went down, before my whole issue with Sea of Thieves, I really didn't have a problem. It was annoying creating accounts for games. Lego 2K Drive, to get the 3 multiplayer trophies, I had to create a 2K account just so I could access online, which I thought was absolutely stupid because I'm a PSN member. That should get me in. I don't think all these companies should have logins to their game. If you're a member of the community for which you are selling your game on, that should be good enough. Because it's not like you're getting anything, it's not like that login is doing anything extra to you other than maybe my guess would be that the developer can get more instant analysis or numbers of who's in their game. I don't know. it's gotten ridiculous.
Matt, maybe you may find this too much of a hot take, but I'll say it. I think PC players would rather play games on Steam, find anything to play on Steam, than support Sony if Sony's going to be pulling this bullshit. Because, like I said last week, there's a line in the sand for everybody, and it's a different spot for everyone. You may be annoyed by having to do like one of those, like, are you an automaton authenticator? But by the time you have to do sticks, a lot of people are like, you know what? Fuck this shit. I'm going to fight somebody. And I think that Sony's, relatively new to PC still with their games. And I think all this is doing is hurting their brand. It's tarnishing their brand on PC because, PC players, they had to deal with some really bad launches for some of the games on the PlayStation games on PC. Last of Us Part 1 being one of those. And now you have this authenticated, these logins. Like I've said before, people have 1,000 logins, whether it be for their Netflix account, for their bank, for Amazon, for Facebook, for Skype, for all this shit. And people just have way too many logins and they don't want to have as many accounts. So now you have a Steam account, but you got to make a PlayStation account for all this. People are tired of it. I don't want to have 1,000 accounts and 1,000 passwords to remember. So really, in all of doing this, Sony trying to link trophies on PC or trying to bring more people, get more PlayStation accounts on PC and bring them over to the PlayStation ecosystem. Really what you're doing is pissing people off and hurting your own brand, because you piss people off now, they're less likely to want to support you in the future. And I stick to that. I know I got kind of lost there for a second, Matt, but I figured you got enough of my rant to be able to respond in some kind of fashion.
I'll say this. PC gamers are very fickle. It's... We talk about having,
when it comes to Steam, because you'll never
except when it comes to Steam, because Steam gives us what we want, and I'll circle back to that in a second. We all joke about how silly PC gamers are when it's like, oh, I have to have 5 launchers. Well, because all those launchers have different password requirements and different usernames. Even if you try to get the same username, maybe you get to a launcher that's a little too late, and the username you traditionally use is different. It's just remembering 50 billion different credentials. And then on top of it, it's keeping all those launchers updated. On my Steam Deck, every time I launch Red Dead Redemption 2, it wants to launch the Rockstar Thin client. And you'd think there'd be an option that when I click remember me, it actually fucking remembers me, as opposed to, just remembering that I had an account. So I have an issue with having multiple launchers in that they don't make it user friendly. And it comes back to this point. Gabe Newell of Steam said, piracy is not it's not a financial problem. It's a convenience problem. Because if you make something easy for people to get, they'll go that route. The problem is piracy is easy in some aspects, in that you're going to be able to go pirate a game and it's going to be a better experience than one that you buy off Steam that has digital rights management associated with it, something that slows down your computer, something that puts a rootkit in your computer, something that makes your experience worse than somebody going and downloading something for free.
Skull and crossbones, baby. Skull and crossbones.
Sail the high seas. The point
Jolly
being
Roger.
The point being there is, if you make it so difficult for a legitimate gamer to buy and play your game, they're going to turn to piracy. And that's where Valve has been successful, in that in many cases, they've implemented ways to allow gamers to easily buy and play games. And in many cases where I can go buy a game and at a discount, and I'll put up with the BS of extra launchers because I got it for $10. When a year ago it was 60. It's just upsetting that, and I 100% agree with what Yield says. It shouldn't be this difficult to buy games, to play games. And unfortunately, because each of these companies is trying to get their market share, they put in methods and things that are the antithesis of getting us to play the games quicker. And that's where I'll leave it at that.
Yield, sir, I think we've exhausted this discussion, but if you've got anything else to say, I'll leave you the floor now.
Nope, I'm good.
All right. That is going to bring us to the end here. But before we get out, we got to do our shout outs and oh yeah, the Tricky left a note here in the chat. The Boston Bruins are playing the Florida Panthers, who I saw the other night. Florida Panthers. It was like 6-1. They kicked the shit out of the Bruins. So fear those Panthers, Tricky. But yeah, let's do some shout outs. Matt, why don't you go first?
I am going to forego most of my normal shout outs this week and just say Happy Mother's Day to all those awesome mothers killing it out there.
All right. Tricky wants to give a shout out to the Florida Panthers. He says he does fear them. It's the only team he does fear. So, Yield, sir, what about you?
Shout out to Matt and Alex for recording tonight. Tricky in the background running the stream. Shout out to my niece who graduated her first 2 years of college. Shout out to the guys for Rocket League, Alex, Nitro, and the Brain 76. And that'll do it to me for this week.
Last but not least, I will go give a shout out to our community, our awesome community, the fuel to the fire that is us. Without you guys, we just don't go. We are a podcast, but with our community, really, there's no power behind the podcast. So we want to thank you all every single week for supporting us and pushing us to be even better. Shout out to Tricky, who couldn't be on mic tonight, but was in the chat and running things in the background, as Shield said. So we do appreciate that, Tricky. We hope you're feeling better and the meds aren't kicking your ass quite so much. I'm sure a Rangers win the next time they play to close out the series with the Carolina Hurricanes would go a long way in making Tricky feel better. Give a shout out to Matt and to Yield as well, who joined me tonight, as well as everyone. The question we got from Rick, that's a good question, sir. Thank you very much. Last but not least, we give a happy Mother's Day and a shout out to Ashley, my girlfriend. I love you, hun. Went out and got some tacos today, got some ice cream, took her to the bookstore because one of the things that usually makes Ashley pretty happy is just going to the bookstore and looking at books. So she picked up the first ever Stephen King book she read. And I can't for the life of me remember what it is now. Is The Eye of the Dragon? Something the Dragon? Can't remember exactly. But the first Stephen King book she ever read, she was able to pick up a paperback today. So to add to her collection. So hope you had a nice day, hun. Love you. And it's going to bring me to the end of my shout outs. Folks, that's a wrap on episode 621. We thank you very much for listening as always. And until next week, happy trophy hunt.
See ya.
All hail Dave the Diver.
The theme song is Venus by the band Even off their album Zenith. Permission granted by the band and 12 Stone Records. You can find them on Facebook by going to www.facebook.com/evenphilippines.